SEA Games 2025, PH assured of bronze in women's tennis team event. Manila, Philippines, Shara Rivera and Alexa Milliam survived Vietnam's challenge to advance to the semifinal round of the 33rd Southeast Asian Games women's tennis team event on Wednesday at National Tennis Development Center in Nonthaburi, Thailand. Rivera and Milliam withstood Vanchanel and Nguyen Lai in 3 sets, 7-5, 3-6, 6-2, to win the series after splitting the first 2 singles matches. The teammates from U.S. NCAA Division II University of West Alabama both fought through cramps after dropping the second set and dominated the decider to complete the come-from-behind win. The pair is also assured of a bronze medal with the semifinal appearance. Rising star Alex Ila, the country's flag bearer, rushed to her teammates as they celebrated their first win after watching the Philippine tennis squad's campaign opener that started in the morning. Milliam dropped the opening game to Lai, falling short of a comeback in the third set, 2-6, 6-4, 6-3-7. But Rivera bounced back for her teammate and forced a deciding doubles match with a dominant 6-2, 6-2 win over Vietnam's Thuy Tran. Philippine tennis coach Denise Dai relished the squad's impressive start in the biennial meet. "There's definitely a lot of potential in this group, and I think this is only the beginning," she said. "They're great role models in general, whether singles, doubles, or off the court. I think those types of things have come a long way, and they've been doing a great job so far. I think that's kind of why we've had the success we've had so far." Top of form. The morning sun over Chiang Mai, host city of the 2025 Southeast Asian Games, rose like a quiet promise, soft amber, and strangely calm for a day charged with anticipation. On the outer courts of the Samdet Phra Srinagarindra Sports Complex, the women of the Philippine tennis team warmed up with a mixture of controlled urgency and nervous laughter. Their strokes cracked through the chilled air, each thud of the ball echoing like a heartbeat that belonged not to individuals, but to a nation watching across screens and waiting for the story to unfold. At 8:12 a.m., when the SEA Games officials released the bracket update, phones buzzed in the pockets of journalists, coaches, and volunteers. The Philippines had advanced to the semifinals by virtue of a walkover from the quarterfinal round, a twist of fate that guaranteed the team at least a bronze medal. For some delegations, a guaranteed bronze might have elicited only mild applause. But for the Philippines, whose women's tennis program had undergone years of rebuilding, heartbreak, and quiet perseverance, it was cause for a cheer that hovered between disbelief and triumph. Yet the story of the bronze began long before that morning announcement. The team that was never supposed to be ready. 3 years before the 2025 SEA Games, the Philippine women's team was in disarray. Players retiring early, coaches juggling shoestring budgets, facilities that groaned under the weight of time. What remained were a handful of young hopefuls who trained not because they were promised victory, but because they couldn't imagine their lives without the sound of a tennis ball being struck cleanly off the strings. Among them was Liada Torres, 19, the youngest member of the squad and arguably its quiet soul. She learned tennis on a cracked concrete court behind her grandmother's bakery in Lucena, where the net was made of fishing line and the sidelines were drawn with chalk from broken school supplies. Yet she played with a hunger that made spectators lean forward. Then there was Isabel Isa Moreno, 24, the team captain who had nearly quit tennis 2 years prior after a shoulder injury left her unable to serve for months. On difficult days, she worked as a part-time coach for kids in Quezon City. On tougher days, she stretched her shoulder with the stubbornness that terrified her physiotherapist. When she was named captain in early 2025, she cried, not because of the title, but because she knew the work had finally been worth something. Rounding out the squad were Janelle Fabreau, the crafty doubles specialist with hands so soft she could drop volley a hurricane, and Veronica Zamora, the squad's emotional spark plug, whose spirit could lift or rattle a stadium in equal measure. To say they weren't favored at the SEA Games was an understatement. Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia loomed over the tennis landscape like mountains. The Philippines, at best, was expected to be a gentle hillside, but the thing about underdogs is that they tend to run hardest when everyone stops watching. 2. Arrival in Chiang Mai. The Philippine delegation landed in Chiang Mai to the smell of lemongrass and the buzz of excited volunteers. The tennis team's uniforms, blue with diagonal lines meant to evoke waves of the Pacific, looked crisp under the airport lights. But what caught most viewers' attention were their faces, wide-eyed, earnest, and almost disbelieving that they were really here. The players were lodged in Athlete Village Cluster B, a freshly painted complex with communal lounges and a cafeteria that became a melting pot of languages and laughter. Indonesians shouted across tables. Cambodian swimmers traded jokes. A row of Malaysian sprinters gathered around an absurdly competitive game of mobile chess. Lia, overwhelmed by the foreignness of everything, stayed close to ISA, who seemed more composed but was secretly just as anxious. "Don't stare too long at the Singapore team," ISA whispered as they passed a group of athletes clad in red and white jackets. "They'll think we're planning something." "But I'm just looking at their sneakers," Lia protested. "They're so shiny. Then they'll think we're planning to steal them." Laughter, unexpected, grounding, bubbled between them. It set the tone for what would become their team's identity throughout the games. Focused, yes, but never so tightly wound that they forgot to breathe. 3. The quarterfinal that never happened. The morning of the quarterfinal match was supposed to be frantic. The Philippines was slated to play a strong squad, one with a history of ruthless singles players and doubles teams that could outthink any lineup. Analysts had given the PH team only a 15% chance of advancing. But fate has a curious habit of bending when no one is looking. News trickled in that their opponents were withdrawing due to unexpected injuries in the lineup. At first, the Filipinas didn't grasp the implication. "What does that mean?" Veronica asked, towel draped around her neck. "It means," Coach Ramallah said slowly, reviewing the official bulletin with wide eyes, "we're in the semifinals." "And that means," Janelle prodded,